of the basic principles of health and the miracles that fasting can provide in healing and how to maintain optimal health in life. As a passionate student of ancient cultures and holistic nutrition, Tyler has spent many years studying medical texts of the ancient Egyptians, as well as the longest-lived cultures all around the planet, identifying key components for health, life extension, and happiness. He studied plant-based nutrition at Cornell University and is a certified nutritionist, iridologist, and sclerologist, among several other holistic practices. Over the past 10 years, Tyler has shared his ancient wisdom with over 100,000 people and has led hundreds of workshops and clinical fasting retreats where he's guided people with various forms of cancer, heart disease, brain tumors, diabetes, Lyme disease, IBS, skin conditions, and many more, going on to live healthy and disease-free lives. Ladies and gents, all the way from the United States, please be on your feet and give a big, warm welcome to Tyler Tolman.
All right. Thank you guys so much for that beautiful intro. Really appreciate you. What we'll do first is start off. Normally I can see everybody, but now I can see the comments. So instead of seeing you and having some interaction, maybe dancing, this type of thing, what I'd like for us to do is just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and relax it out. Take another deep breath in, play along. Relax it out. Breathe in some good energy, breathe it in. And just relax it out. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. I can see that 94% of the audience has never seen me before. I would love to just engage with you a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about what this talk is going to be about and what you can get out of this. So what I'd like to start with is where you're coming in from. If you can just type into the chat, I always love to have a little bit of interaction with you guys. So just wherever you're coming in from, could be Africa, could be Atlanta, Georgia, Germany, UK, Nigeria, Canada, Zimbabwe, Jamaica, London, South Africa, Canada, Thailand, all over the world, New York, London, wow, Minnesota, Los Angeles, South Africa. Okay, Philadelphia, Boston, Zimbabwe, again, Massachusetts. Wow, what a diverse audience. This is super exciting. Typically when I do events, it's mostly one country. So this is really good to see. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I want to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to jump straight into this, okay? So what I'd like to do is give a little bit of information about myself, who I am, what my mission is in life. Hopefully you guys have a similar mission or wanting at least the same things. Then I'm going to get into the three major diseases. Okay, the three big diseases: cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, the number one killers. And I want to talk about what we could do to absolutely prevent this. So the word prevent is actually the key, because we have these things called vents. And when I say that, all of us have these vents. They're referred to as defecation, urination, perspiration, and respiration. Okay, this is the way our body vents acids and vents toxins out of the body so that we can be healthy, we can be whole. So I need to be able to poop well. I need to be able to pee well. I need to be able to sweat well. And I need to be able to breathe well. And this will create a whole wellness. If I keep these channels of elimination open and I understand some basic principles of how the body operates, it's going to assist me in being healthy in the long term. So I'm going to talk about how we can prevent the disease, but also, can we actually reverse diabetes? Can we reverse certain forms of cancer? Can we reverse heart disease? And I'm going to show you some cases of some people that I've worked with over the years. For 10 years, I was running clinical fasting programs in Bali, Indonesia. Clinical meaning I actually hired a doctor from the United States to fly out to Bali, Indonesia, look at people's blood tests, look at their scans, look at everything, make sure we were building them up so that when they came to Bali, they could actually go through the process of fasting safely. And we clinically monitored them the entire time, meaning we're looking at urine analysis every single day. We're checking their blood pressure. We're checking their bloods once a week, because these are like extended fasting programs, meaning we're going like 21 days on a water fast. And while we're doing that, we're going into some pretty advanced processes to clear mentally and emotionally and open up these 4 channels of elimination that I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to get into 3 diseases. I'm going to talk about how we can identify a disease potentially years in advance, so that you can identify, oh, if things are really off, what do I have to actually do, to get back into alignment. And then I'm going to talk about how we actually heal ourselves, the basic, simple principles of what you can do to heal yourself. And I believe that all of you will agree with me and be like, oh yeah, well, that's simple and it's true. And then you just have to assess, am I actually doing these things? Simple things like drinking enough water, going for a walk, getting some exercise, having some relationships and connection where you feel loved and part of a community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of how it's going to go. I'm just going to jump in and get started. So here we go. Take a deep breath again and let it out. So this presentation is called The Science of Healing: Injuries, Toxicity, and Chronic Disease. And as you can see in the background there, I've got a beautiful image of fruits and vegetables and different things that I think are some of the greatest healers. And I'll just start off by saying that Hippocrates, known as the father of medicine, was the original physician that took the information out of the East. So Hippocrates went to Egypt and he stayed there for 7 years, because it was actually 7 years that it took to become a basic physician. So he trained for 7 years, came out of Egypt, and then dispelled this information to the rest of the West. And if you go back and look into history, you'll find out that during this time, all sickness was just attributed to maybe pissing off one of the gods and bad fortune. And literally, like if you were sick with anything, you'd have to go to the temple and pray and try to find the god that was upset that you had pissed off, and maybe fast a little bit in the process, which might have worked a lot of times. So essentially, Hippocrates changed that into recognizing that there are different types of imbalances and disease in general. And essentially, there's a way to go about healing other than just praying to the gods. So let's get into this thing. So first off, who am I? I won't spend too much time, I hope, on this, but I do have to give a big shout out. Upper left there, you can see my father, Don Tolman. He was running fasting programs when I was a young teenager, okay? And in fact, even before that, but I was 12 years old when I had the opportunity to go out and actually stay with him and start to learn the wisdom that this man had developed. And he spent about 17 years traveling around the world, learning from the longest lived cultures and looking into people like Hippocrates and Socrates and Pythagoras and Plato and all these interesting healers and different people as well. And he really brought back a system of simplicity when it comes to health. I put these other images. Top right there is me with my mother, Joanna. She raised 3 kids on her own. I was probably the biggest turd out of the 3. I really caused a lot of stress for my mother, but she loves me. I love her. And I just wanted to say, beautiful shout out to my mom. And then this is my daughter, Tiffany, and my grandson. So I do have a grandson. He's nearly 3. He's going to be here this weekend. I just moved to Austin, Texas, and he's coming here with my daughter for the first time. So that's exciting. And then you can see my beautiful wife in the middle and my other daughter, Sienna. And then I just put a few other photos. I love being on stage. I love talking and speaking with people. I love learning new information and doing my best to take advanced information and science and things and try to simplify it so that people actually can start to practice these things and it becomes a part of your life. The Greeks talked about this thing called gnosis, praxis, and intellicus. And that refers to knowledge and then applying the knowledge so that it becomes you. And a lot of times, there's so much information in the world, we actually just need to bring it back to simplicity and ask ourselves, what are the simple truths and things that I need to be doing on a daily basis to maintain ultimate health and growth? Okay, and I'll get into in a little while the 7 principles of health, the very simple things that if we start to become aware and incorporate these into our life, has a profound impact. These are air, water, sunshine, exercise, whole foods, relationships, and passion. And I'll get into that. And then about 4 years ago, after running these clinical programs in Bali, Indonesia for so long, I decided to start training other coaches, what I call the new physician. So many people coming with cancer, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, and all these things healing, even though they were told they would never heal. And when you reverse a major disease, despite being told by medical doctors and professionals that you could potentially never heal, when you heal yourself, you want to share that with other people. And so I was constantly bombarded with people like, how can you teach me these methods so that I can then go out and help my family and friends and people that need the truth of the simplicity and what we have to do to be self-empowered, heal ourselves, and really make real change. So I started running something called an academy and teaching other new physicians, we call health coaches, to go out and start doing this. And so these are just some of the things that I love. Thanks for holding space for me while I share a little bit about my family and things that I love to do. And now let's jump into it. One more time, take a deep breath. Put it out. Okay, so Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine. Okay, we've all heard it. The interesting part is that's not the whole quote. Okay, and you can see 480 BC. So quite a long time ago, he's known as the father of medicine and laying the foundation for modern medicine. And in fact, all doctors swore to something called the Hippocratic Oath. I actually have a plaque with the whole Hippocratic Oath on it. And part of that is stating that if you can't help or you're not sure, at least do no harm. And it says, when you swear to this, you're making sure that you're not incorporating anything that could potentially hurt the person, any type of poison or toxicity that could make the situation worse. And if you were to go against the Hippocratic Oath, that's where the word hypocrite comes from. Because if you swear to the Hippocratic Oath, but then you go and kind of give people things that might actually be causing more harm than good, that is the definition of a hypocrite. Okay, so the quote doesn't actually end there. The full quote was actually, let food be thy medicine be thy food. But to eat when you are sick is to feed your sickness. That last part was left out. Okay, so to eat when you are sick is to feed your sickness. And this is something we need to become aware of, because if you get sick, if you get the flu, if you have things showing up and coming up that are starting to cause a problem, the greatest physicians would say, well, maybe you need to actually open up these 4 channels of elimination, do a little bit of fasting, stop eating, and clean the body out and remove the blockage and the toxicity that's causing the reaction. Try to keep it as simple as that. A few other quotes by Hippocrates. He said, before healing someone, ask if he's willing to give up what made him sick in the first place. And I see that this is a big problem with what's going on today, is people get sick because they're smoking cigarettes, they're drinking alcohol, they're eating processed foods, artificial colors and sweeteners, and really exposed to a lot of toxicity in the environment, maybe not exercising, maybe not drinking water, simple hydration, maybe just in a bad relationship in their own mind with themselves and others, so constant stress and not feeling loved, accepted, whatever it is. When you feel sick and you just go to a doctor, a lot of times they're just going to say, well, you got the symptom here, take this drug. And, a lot of times those pills and those drugs are just suppressing the symptom. But the symptom is just a sign or signal of something else that's out of balance. The symptom is not actually the disease. The symptom is the body saying, hey, hello, wake up, like there's something going on here. So, where we are today is you have these symptoms that show up because you're out of alignment with natural principles. You go to see a doctor and they give you a pill to suppress typically the very sign or symptom that's telling you you're doing something wrong, rather than the physician saying, hey, how much water do you drink? Do you go for a walk? Do you exercise? Do you breathe clean air? What are you eating? What's your relationship with yourself and the external environment and people around you? Are you stressed? Do you sleep at night? All these simple questions that a real and true physician would ask, and in fact would have to ask to really understand the problem and be able to give the right information to fix it. And in fact, the word medicine, if we go all the way back to ancient Egypt, you can look up Medu Netru. It's the language of nature, Medu Netru. And I actually teach the hieroglyph language and Egyptian language. And when you understand this, Medu means language or words. Okay. Sunu was the name of the physician. So if you look in the hieroglyphs, and I could draw them out for you if I had the opportunity here, it's the words of the physician. Medu, words, language. Sunu, physician. So Medu Sunu was the words of the physician. Those were where the word medicine comes from. So if we look up the origins of the word medicine, it was the words of the physician. Pretty brilliant stuff, because the true physician's gone through the process of healing, knows such an advanced knowledge of nature and how to apply the principles of nature into the art of healing. And if you want to, you can actually go on Google and look up physician, definition of the word physician. It means an advanced knowledge of nature applied in the art of healing. Just look up the definition of physician, French, physician, Latin. It's art of healing and knowledge of nature. Okay, so what I'm trying to establish here is an unfortunate fact that we no longer have true physicians in hospitals. And God bless the doctors that are there, especially when it comes to trauma and emergency. If you're in a car accident, you have a major trauma, you go there. That's the place to go to mend bones and stop the bleeding and give you the things so that you're not in pain and dying. They're great at trauma. They're great at emergencies. But if we really look into this thing of disease, most of it's not trauma and emergency medicine. It's actually wrong living and being out of sync with the principles of nature that lead to a situation of imbalance or disease. And in those cases, we need true and real physicians. All right, so let me move on with some of these quotes. There's some powerful ones here. Hippocrates also said, everything in excess is opposed by nature. So really looking at our lives and saying, oh, is there an area of my life where I'm really overdoing something? Because anything in excess is actually opposed by nature and can lead to problems. And it could even be like, something as simple, as like exercise. Exercise is really good. Strength training, really good. But if it's in excess, it can actually work to detriment. Okay, too much sunshine, too much water. And of course, when it comes to artificial colors and preservatives and processed foods and all these other things, we need to become aware that balance is also very important. He said, our job as a physician is to help and at least do no harm. And again, there's that last part. To eat when you are sick is to feed your sickness. So this is guiding us towards the principles of fasting in order to detoxify and actually heal ourselves. And I want to get into the science of that a little bit later. Hippocrates also said, walking is man's best medicine. The simplicity of getting up and going for a walk. We are bipedal creatures, humans. For hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever years we've been around, human beings would have to wake up and walk to their water source just to be able to hydrate and bathe themselves. Walking is the most natural thing. Unfortunately, today we have the water delivered to our houses. We have everything delivered to our houses by Amazon or companies and things. And we're so comfortable. Got the nice couch, got the 75-inch screen TV, whatever it is. It's like we no longer have to leave the house. And in fact, when you're on lockdown, it becomes even a major problem. So it's so important to understand that basic cross-patterning motion of walking rewires the brain. It's one of the greatest antidepressants. And everything that I have to share is based on the highest principles of truth, and they're simple, but we have to ask ourselves if we're actually doing these things on a daily basis. Okay, I'm not here to sell any magic pill or capsule or magic thing. I'm here to give the truth of the simple principles that if you're truly tuning in and like, oh yeah, you know what? I haven't been for a walk in like a week or whatever it is. You don't have to be a marathon triathlete, anything. You don't need to go to the gym and get smashed and can't walk for a week. The truest health comes down to simple walking. It improves the digestive system. It opens everything up. Typically a nice fast-paced walk gets you breathing, gets all the channels of elimination start to open. If you're ever stressed out, you simply just go for a walk. And it's like all the worries and the bills and the things and the people and the overwhelm. If you actually just go for a long enough walk, 45 minutes to an hour, and start hopefully at a park or somewhere where there's some green or ocean or fresh air. It's just that simple process of walking completely balances us back out. And especially in the day and age which we live today, it's so important to make that daily practice. Wake up, drink water, go for a walk. Typically, if you do that, you'll have a good poo, open up the channels of elimination, defecation, urination, perspiration and respiration to some degree, breathing deeply, and eliminating yesterday's waste. That's how we should start the day pretty much every day. All right. So I'm hoping you guys can see here that, I'm just laying a foundation that we can all hopefully agree upon. And you guys can pick and choose the little bits and pieces that you want to take from this and maybe add it into your life. So the problems that I'd like to solve, I talked about this earlier, the 3 big diseases. We're going to jump straight in. Here we go. Diabetes. Diabetes is the world's fastest growing chronic disease. Okay. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, why? Why is diabetes the fastest growing chronic disease? And I will give you the answer. All you got to do is go into any city, walk down the street, and look inside the restaurants. If it's the fastest growing chronic disease, more people being diagnosed every day than anything else, why? And the truth is, this is diet related. It's lifestyle related. And so all you got to do is look in all the restaurants, look at all of what the people are eating, what they're doing, and then you'll have your answer. Okay. And I do want to get more clear into that. So let's do it. Also, Australia's fastest growing chronic disease. This is where I do a lot of my programs. I had one individual. His name is Steve Cocciani. It's that kind of guy, that taller guy with the big belly. You would think that the woman next to him is his wife, but it's actually the other woman on the other side is his wife. And that other woman's one of the crew. But he showed up with diabetes. Him and his wife came to one of my presentations, okay, in Melbourne, 400 or 500 people in the audience. And at the end of this conversation, she looked at him and said, "You're coming to this man's fasting retreat or I'm leaving you." Interesting. Okay, so he ends up coming to my fasting retreat in Bali, Indonesia. Okay, or he comes to the fasting retreat, total arms up, doesn't want to be there. He's like, "Look, my wife's forced me to be here, but whatever you tell me to do, I'll just do it. But just know that, I don't agree with this," and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I was like, "Well, what's that you're holding?" And he's got this big bag of pills. And he's like, "Well, these are the things that I need to take in order to not die. I got diabetes. I got some things going on, blood pressure, yada, yada." And so back then I was a little bit arrogant. This is when I first started doing this. I kind of looked at all the bottles, acted as if I knew what I was talking about, and actually threw them in the trash and said, "Welcome to the fasting program." And I handed him a juice. And I said, "Here's what I want you to do. You said you'd do what I tell you to do. So just go ahead and I want you to drink about 250 mils, like quarter of a liter. Okay, every couple of hours, and just stay hydrated with fresh squeezed juices." And this guy's like, "Isn't this stuff like pure sugar? This is the stuff my doctor said to avoid, never drink, et cetera, et cetera." I said, "Well, look, here's what's happening. You eat so much, believe it or not, fat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that the fat is actually coating your arteries. And so if fat's coating your arteries and you drink a juice, all that sugar comes in, blood sugar goes up. It's supposed to come down. Anytime you eat an apple, you have some fresh fruit, you have a juice, blood sugar goes up, then it goes down. Why? Because all that sugar goes into the blood and then it gets uptaken by the muscles and the cells, and energy production can happen and the blood sugar goes down. But if you add fat, which is like a insulator, the fat actually coats your arteries. And it was Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn here in the United States at the Cleveland Clinic that proved if you eat a high-fat meal, that fat's going to stay in your arteries for about 6 to 8 hours. And so if that fat's in your arteries and you're eating things with sugars, carbohydrates, pretty much all plant-based types of food, it's going to be harder for those sugars to upload into your muscles and into your cells. So what happens is you get this insulin spike response. Insulin is like a carrier that grabs the sugar and forces it across that barrier into the cells. And so what happens if you eat high fat, you also eat a lot of sugar together, over time and distance, these insulin starts to build up inside of the cells, and you develop something called insulin resistance. Okay. And the way we remove insulin resistance is get that excess insulin and things out of the cells, typically through fasting. Remember, Hippocrates said to eat when you're sick is to feed your sickness. So if you have diabetes, you're developing these symptoms, this disease, you need to stop eating, allow the body to reset itself, get rid of all the excess insulin, reset the pancreas, and things will start to function smoothly again. Okay, so what I'm doing is getting into the actual causal issues. Whereas if you just go to a doctor and they say, oh, you have high blood sugar, don't eat sugar. Well, it appears that that would help, but in fact, it doesn't, because that's not the actual underlying cause. It's the high fat with sugar together that's the actual cause. So here's this individual, and I'll just read what he wrote. I said, I first met Tyler Tolman in February 2011 on the 7-day self-care juice fast course. Back then I was type 2 diabetic, weighed 117 kilograms, ate lots of meats, takeaway food, drank Coke on a daily basis. I was on 7 different types of medication to control my blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes. I was generally unwell and constantly tired. Anybody relate to this? Constantly feeling tired, constantly feeling worn out, maybe a little bit of high blood pressure, maybe some blood sugar imbalance or high cholesterol when you get a blood test. And just like a lot of people here, maybe, I don't know, I was skeptical at first with this whole self-care thing, as I'd always believed in everything I'd been told by my doctors and specialists. This led to the 7-day juice cleanse, where I stopped taking all my medication on day 1. So he stopped taking all medication and started drinking pretty much sugar juices, vegetables, carrot, apple, beet, lemon, some fruit juices, orange, pineapple, things like this, which most people would say that is absolutely crazy to put a diabetic on juice full of sugar. And yes, I was a little bit crazy back in these days. Learned a lot since then. I wouldn't just throw somebody's medication away and give them juice, but it worked. My blood sugar reading went from 9.2 to 4.1. Excuse me. Over the next 7-week journey, I managed to lose 17 kilograms, stop being any type of diabetic, regained lots of energy, and had a new lease on life. Now, nearly 4 years later, I'm another 5 kgs lighter. He's actually quite tall. He's about 6'4", 6'5". Still free of diabetes. Thank you, Tyler. This is the best thing I've ever done for me. Okay. And what I'd like to say is I told him in the beginning, I was like, look, you're going to drink these juices. You're going to have these reactions because you still got all this fat inside your arteries. But within 2 or 3 days, the body will emulsify all that fat and clean it out. And your cells will start to truly receive the nutrients of these amazing cold pressed, beautiful juices from vegetables and fruits and things. And you're going to start to feel better and have energy. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. By day 4, he was there before anybody. I used to get up at like 4:30 in the morning just to prep, because we'd all get together and we would go through these basic exercises and things, go for a little hike and then come back. He was there before everyone and like, man, I feel like a cloud's lifted off my brain. I can actually think clearly for the first time in so long. And I get it and I'm listening. And so he actually really started to show up and listen to the information that I was sharing for the rest of that program, which of course he went home and kept doing and essentially healed himself. All right. So next slide here is all about cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer, okay? It kills more people than anything ever has. Cardiovascular disease, that means people dying of heart attacks, strokes, thrombosis, all kinds of issues. More people die of cardiovascular disease than anything else. So if we could solve this problem, we'd be in a really good place. One individual, I did a talk in Manly many, many years ago. This guy came to my talk and listened in, but probably didn't make many changes, didn't take action, didn't do anything. But then eventually his blood pressure and cholesterol got so high that he went to what he calls the leading cardiologist in Australia. This guy's quite wealthy. So he went to the leading cardiologist, and the cardiologist said, look, you got to get on these 3 medications for your blood pressure, cholesterol, etc. And he said, doctor, is there anything I can do to avoid this? And this cardiologist said, no, you have cardiovascular disease. You'll be on these 3 medications for the rest of your life. At which time he said, well, look, I went to this guy, Tyler Tolman. Have you heard of him? He's like, obviously, probably no. Well, he says you can reverse cardiovascular disease, at which point the cardiologist probably laughed at him and said, you go waste your money, do what you want to do, and I'll see you back here, and you will be on these medications for the rest of your life. So Matt Catling came to Bali, Indonesia. He did about 7 days on juice and 14 days on water. I gave him a lot of education. He broke the fast for about 9 or 10 days. And then a couple of weeks later, went back to his cardiologist with his blood pressure being around 120 over 80 and his cholesterol completely normal. And his cardiologist said, well, you have something called spontaneous remission. And it happens to some people. Have a nice day. And he's like, well, don't you want to know what I did and what I went through? And he's pretty much like, nope, it's called spontaneous remission. Happens to some people. See you later. Next. Just next person. Unfortunately, probably drugs. But what actually happened to this individual is by the process of fasting, which Hippocrates said to eat when you are sick is to feed your sickness, by simply being guided through this process of fasting, he was able to strip all of the cholesterol and the hardening of the arteries and all the things out of his body, hydrate, get some nutrition, reset things. And pretty much every single case of high blood pressure, cholesterol over the last 10 years of people that I've worked with, every single case, blood pressure comes down, cholesterol comes down, which, by the way, if you believe in science and you want to look into the science, high blood pressure is the number one risk factor for all cause mortality, meaning all death, cancer, heart disease, diabetes. If your blood pressure is high, it's the number one risk factor for all disease and death. And so the fact that every single case of people that I've worked with out of hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people online coming down fasting, it becomes quite obvious very quickly. One of the best ways to reverse all cause mortality or disease. So let's move on. And I wish I could go through and show you guys case study after case study and blood tests and all the things. I only have so much time here. 1 in 2 Australians will be diagnosed with cancer. Australia is the main country I do most of my presentations in, and I have been for the last probably 12 years. Australia is actually number 1 in the world for cancer. Not saying that other countries aren't close right behind, but Australia is number 1, and they say 1 in 2 Australians will be diagnosed with cancer. That's 50% of the population. So I'd say that's a major problem, something that I really want to help as many people as possible to avoid having that happen, because that's half of your family, okay? And somebody even in the chat was like, why is it so high there? Well, just go there and go walk down the streets and look in the restaurants. Okay, I mean it. Look at what these people are eating. Look at what they're doing. Australia is also number 1 in the world to promote putting chemicals on your skin when you go out in the sun. And in fact, if you look at those chemicals in sunblock, a lot of them are carcinogenic, which means cancer causing in the genes. So you have an entire population that's been indoctrinated not to go in the sun because the sun is bad and causes cancer, and puts chemicals onto their skin. Then you just go look in restaurants and see what these people are eating and consuming, and you're going to have the answer fairly quickly. Okay. Somebody asking, what should I put on my skin if I burn easily? You can use coconut oil. It's a natural oil that helps and assists the body to tan and block enough of the sun that it's not as damaging. It has about a 5 to 6 SPF. If you want to put in a little bit of seed oil, like carrot seed oil, that'll take it up to a 30 SPF. But the point is, we need to be going into the sun just like all human beings should every day. Get up out of bed, go for a walk, and be outside. We need to develop melanin, which is one of the greatest capacitors for electrical energy. Okay, it's being used right now by science, melanin in electrical devices. So we need to develop the melanin in our skin. It gives us energy, and it's also one of the greatest antioxidants. So not only is it protecting us from the sun by developing that tan, but we're getting the vitamin D, we're getting the melanin. It's going to help us to sleep. It's going to help every cell of the body to improve, et cetera, et cetera. I probably should move on so I can get through all this content. But essentially, this is the American Cancer Society's website. This is just screenshots. There's no other agency on the planet that's invested more to find the causes of cancer than the American Cancer Society. In fact, every year they invest $100 million or more in the actual science. So when I had people at my clinical fasting program with pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, brain tumors, liver cancer, colon cancer, skin cancer, I'm researching this website. And through this website, you can go and look at, $10 million spent on nutritional studies for leukemia and carcinomas and all kinds of different things. And believe it or not, the research is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's all leading back to what I'm saying. And in fact, the American Cancer Society states diet is the second greatest factor in the epidemic of cancer. So let that sink in. Hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on cancer research, and they say right on their website, diet is the second greatest factor in the epidemic of cancer. Now, here's the problem. If that's the truth, you end up getting diagnosed with cancer. You go see a doctor, and you start asking the doctor, oh, doctor, why do I have cancer? Are they going to say, oh, it's probably what you eat? Probably not. They're going to say it's genetic. And this thing happens, and it's a rare thing. And there's only 3 options. We can cut, we can burn, or we can poison. We can cut the cancer out of you. We can burn it with radiation, or we can poison it with chemotherapy. All of these things are fighting disease. And we need to understand that true physicians never were in a fight with disease, because when you fight something, you tend to make it worse over time and distance. Radiation is known to cause cancer. American Cancer Society's website. Chemotherapy is the second leading cause, secondary leukemia. It causes leukemia. So if we understand we're using things, using fire to fight fire, we might start to question and be like, well, is there a better way? Can we use water on the fire? A true physician would help somebody to embrace the principles of health in order to gain health. Don't fight disease, just gain health. And if every person was focused on gaining health, guess what they would get? Health. And if you're focused on fighting disease, guess what you get more of? Weapons of war, fighting disease, next surgery, next pharmaceutical drug. I know I'm full on. Thanks for listening. This is the American Cancer Society, what they have to say about genetics in cancer, because everybody, their big rebuttal is, oh, Tyler, I was told it's genetic. Well, it says here, remember, this is the science. Hundreds of millions. Nobody spends this much money. When it comes to genetics in cancer, this is exactly what it says. Some types of cancer run in certain families. Why? Because nobody runs in that family. I hope you get it. Cancer runs in certain families because those people aren't the ones out going for walks and eating fruits and vegetables and getting in the sun consistently and having positive relationships. Yes, it's a dynamic multiplicity of things, mental, emotional, physical health. But essentially, that's why cancer runs in families, is because people are all kind of doing the same thing. Mom, dad, sitting on the couch, eating certain types of foods, having certain types of negative energies, etc. And so it says most cancers are not clearly linked to the genes we inherit from our parents, period. So we need to stop blaming it on our parents, stop blaming it on genes, and actually take some self-responsibility of, you know what? The most powerful factor in cancer, heart disease, and diabetes is your lifestyle. It's what you do every day. The little bits of negative that add up every single day, maybe not drinking enough water, not going for the walk, sitting more on the couch, eating more of the foods that make you feel good and numb, because life can be tough at times. So this is Jamie Carlin. This is just one program, by the way, of this is a 90-day process. So for 30 days, I get people to change their lifestyle, build them up, detox them a little bit with fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, herbs, different things, and get them to a point where they can come and fast for a 30-day period. Okay, detox for a 30-day period. And then, so I got this clinical fasting doctor that's there, and all these people. I got a guy with multiple myeloma, cardiovascular disease, gastroesophageal disease, and diabetes, kind of top right from Florida. I had a young girl with Lyme disease who for 2 years, all the doctors, specialists, everybody tried everything, couldn't figure it out. She just stayed sick, getting more and more sick. You know, came to this program 30 days later, no symptoms, going back to school, having her life back. So where every medical doctor and, you know, specialist couldn't do anything, little old me in 30 days completely helped her to reverse all these symptoms, get back to health. There's so many cases here, but this guy, Jamie Carlin, had stage 4, what's called follicular lymphoma. Okay, so he's in Melbourne. He's diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he's the type, he's had a couple friends that were diagnosed with cancer that went down the traditional treatments, but they had major bad reactions and ended up dying. And his words were, they died from the treatment, not from the actual cancer, and I will never do that. So this is an individual diagnosed with stage 4 cancer who was told he needed to have about 20 plus lymph nodes cut out and chemotherapy straight away, who denied all of it. He said, I'm not doing surgery. I'm not doing chemotherapy. I'm going to look somewhere else. And this guy is an engineer, so he's very detailed, lots of questions. He looked at Gerson therapy, looked at going to Germany and all these different clinics around the world. And then he called me, and I had about a 2-hour conversation with him, answering all of his questions and showing him the results of some other people who had been to this program. So he chose to work with me. And this is what happened. His oncologist said, look, you know, I know you're going to go do something alternative. What you need to look for is something called CRP, C-reactive protein. If you can get that to come down, that means you're healing. And another one called LDH, which is a marker for the stress on your organs. So heart, lung, liver, kidneys, basically all your organs, if they're under stress, your LDH goes up. And we can see that the average CRP is supposed to be 5. His was 41. LDH is supposed to be under 250. His was 306. And so he told me, he said, Tyler, I'll work with you as long as you can help me to continuously get these numbers down. And you got to understand, I didn't have a fasting program for 8 months. So I just put him onto the same kind of lifestyle that I live. And I'll just say, I had him do intermittent fasting, had him go on a plant-based diet, had him sweating in a sauna every day. And then there were lots of little herbal remedies and different things that have a major powerful effect of increasing your immune system and causing apoptosis of cancer cells, cancer cell death. So I had him doing all these little protocols. And about every month, he was getting his blood tests, and these numbers were coming down, which you can see here. So the actual 30 days in Bali happened in February of 2016. You can see he was diagnosed in July of 2015. So about 8 months later, he came to this program. At the end, he did a 21-day water fast, fully facilitated, major mental and emotional clearing, obviously opening up all the channels of elimination, having massive support to heal. At the end of that program, his CRP was 6, 1 point above. LDH was 207, all his organs perfectly healthy and happy. And then a month later, he went back to his oncologist with a CRP of 1, LDH of 194. And his oncologist said, you have something called spontaneous remission. And he's been able to maintain spontaneous remission for more than 5 years. We're now in 2022. So as you can see, we're more than 5 years later. And you got to understand that I've got lots of these cases, blood work, scans, tracking people with liver, colon cancer, all these types of things, and replicating these results over and over and over and over and over again. So for me, this is something that is easily replicatable with people with autoimmune conditions, people with diabetes, people with cancer, people with all kinds of digestive conditions, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, brain nervous system conditions, Parkinson's, motor neurons disease, Alzheimer's, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that I'm trying to get you to here is that if we can reverse major chronic disease, imagine what we can do to prevent all of this disease and even take our level of experience and vitality mentally, emotionally, and physically to a whole nother level. Because you got to understand, Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, and these individuals weren't fasting to get rid of sickness. They were fasting to take their mental, emotional, physical state to another level. So here's Dennis Murphy, 67-year-old male, multiple myeloma, hypertension, diabetes, gastroesophageal reflux. These are all the medications that he was taking. And so working with the clinical fasting doctor, over 7 days on juices, we slowly got him off all the medications. My fasting doctor did that, not me. Evolving, yes, I am. And he did basically 21 days of fasting. He did 7 days on juice, and then he did 14 days on water. And this is all of his bloods before and after. And I know I might run out of time, so I just need to quickly get through this. But his blood pressure on medication, was 140/84. And then at the end of this program, this is eating for over a week again, his blood pressure is 106/70 without medication. And just that alone is shocking. So having to take medication just to keep it under control, but still high, to the best blood pressure you could ever possibly have, especially at nearly 70 years old, without medication in 30 days. Okay. And I have endless results of people with high blood pressure getting these results in 30 days. Oxygen went from 96 to 99. White blood cell count, the reason it's so high is because his body was fighting infection, went down to normal. Calcium went down because the tumors in his bones were breaking up his bones, causing high calcium, went down to normal. CRP, which is that C-reactive protein we talked about before, was 21, decreased by 75%. Creatinine was near kidney failure, went down to normal. ESR, erythrocyte sediment rate, that's the inflammation in his blood. Remember, he had multiple myeloma, which is like a blood cancer. Went from 57 down to 24, 50% reduction in 3 weeks. LDH went from 310 to 273. Homocysteine, which is a major marker for cardiovascular disease, went from 17 down to 9.7. And blood sugar went from extremely high, and this is after 30 days working with him, came down quite a bit, went down to 74 on juices in that first 7 days, 66 on water, and then completely normal while he was eating. Yes, I agree, Olam. Tyler, the world needs to know about you. That's why I'm here, my friend. And there are so many other new physicians in training right now that are spreading this word and working with people and actually getting the healing happening. We need to know the truth and bring it back to basics and bring it back to the old principles that have been proven by modern day science, which I'm getting into in a minute. I'll try not to spend too much time here because I do need to move on, but this guy's name is Dan Gardner, the guy on the left holding the 2 children. He called me from the parking lot of the hospital. He said, Tyler, I'm actually here to undergo my first chemotherapy treatment. You worked with my nephew and helped him to heal a brain tumor. That's how I know about you. But now that I'm here at the hospital about ready to go in, I have this overwhelming feeling they're going to kill me. This is what this man said to me. So we're on Skype, years ago. He's like, I have this overwhelming feeling they're going to kill me. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, if you have this overwhelming feeling they're going to kill you, you probably shouldn't go in there. And he's like, what do I do? And he said, Tyler, tell me you can heal me. And I said, I'm sorry, my friend, I can't tell you that because I don't know. But if you come to Bali, Indonesia, and come to this program, and I showed him all the people that had done it, I said, I'll give you 1,000%. If you show up and give me 100%, I'll give you 1,000%. We'll support you through the process. I believe 100% you can heal, but you're going to have to make that choice for yourself. You either go have the chemotherapy and do that. I'll still work with you nutritionally. And I do work with a lot of people nutritionally and with methods of fasting, which mitigate the toxicity of chemotherapy. And it's actually quite effective using both. But he grabbed his kids and his wife, which you can see here, came to Bali, Indonesia. I had a daughter around the same age. So they're swimming in the pool, hanging out together. And this guy's going through major detoxification. We had his mercury amalgam fillings pulled out. He's eliminating out of every channel. We're doing emotional clearing. This guy's crying, screaming, spitting, laughing. Man, he went from this big tattooed, bikey, hard man to this like soft teddy bear, fully opening up and clearing so much trauma. Amazing experience. This is the letter that he wrote me. I'm not going to read through all this, but he basically said, Tyler, I'm going to go get tested. And if the tumor is grown, he had colon cancer spread to his liver. He had a golf ball sized tumor in his liver. Okay. Golf ball sized tumor in his liver. Was going to have chemotherapy, came here instead. He said, if it's grown at all, I'm going to have it cut out. But I know the way I feel amazing. I know I can beat this. When he went into the doctor, they did all the blood tests and the scans and everything. They could not find cancer. They could not find the golf ball sized tumor that was in his liver. Completely gone. Okay. This guy did 21 days on water fasting with me and then continued on these protocol for 2 more months. That's 3 months. Golf ball sized tumor to nothing. And you can see what he said in red. No tumors or lesions were detected. I am completely free from cancer. Unfrickin' believable. Okay. This guy relocated his family to Adelaide and ended up opening a colon hydrotherapy clinic called Bottoms Up. Completely changed his life, lifestyle, everything. Okay. And this guy is still alive and healthy today to be with his children. And this is a couple of years ago. I went down. I was asked to do a talk at the Vegan Fest and just give some information. And it was an amazing connection. And I can tell you, there's nothing better in life than helping somebody that ends up being able to show up for their children for the rest of their life. It's such a rewarding thing to do. Somebody's saying, why are you only doing this in Indonesia? Obviously, with COVID that happened, all of that was shut down. So I run these programs fully supportive for 90 days online. And I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And to many degrees, it's even more successful because I got all of my coaches and support. One of my coaches in the UK had aggressive breast cancer, healed herself. Now she's coaching other women with breast cancer. I got people with all kinds of disease conditions, healed themselves. Now we're all coming together and sharing and assisting other people through this process. All right. How do we know when we're going down the wrong path? So this is a question for you guys. Type in the comments. How do you know when you're off track? How do you know if disease is developing? How do you know when things are not going the right way? And there's a simple answer. Body tells you, yes. Paula, thank you. Bad habits, symptoms, Ivy, yes. This is what I'm talking about. Symptoms. I don't have energy. I can't remember what I did yesterday. My memory is going. I got poor energy. I can't sleep at night. I've got insomnia. I got some weird rash. I got something on my lip. I've got weird fungus on my toes. Signs, dizziness, all mental fog. Yes. All of these are signs and symptoms that something is out of whack and we need to correct it and fix it. This is the truth. We need to get back to the principles of health, because if you're in alignment with the principles of health and nature, you have vitality, you have energy, your skin is clean, your eyes are clear, you're mentally onto it, you have a good memory. This is the natural state of human existence. Okay. Every human being should, if you were born with, 5 fingers, 5 toes, 10 fingers, 10 toes, all the right things, you should have abundance of health and vitality your entire life. There's no reason that you shouldn't in this day and age. All the technology, all the available foods, herbs, everything that we have access to. And so it's when we have these little signs and symptoms, it's Mother Nature saying, hey, time to change. But unfortunately, instead of being like, hey, time to change, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I should stop eating burgers every day for lunch, or maybe I need to start going for that walk, or I need to get a little more sun, or I need to hydrate a little bit more and change my mindset, et cetera, et cetera. We just go to a doctor gives you a pill, gets rid of the symptom, and you keep going. I know I'm repeating myself a bit here. So signs and symptoms. And we need to understand the physicians of the past. How did they identify disease? Because they didn't have blood tests. They didn't have MRIs. Not the traditional machines, maybe MRIs to see what was going on and read into people. That's another conversation. They used the eyes. Okay, it's called iridology. Back in Tutankhamun's tomb, they actually dug up iridology plates. The physicians used iridology. They looked at the whites of the eyes to look at the state of your lymphatic system. They looked at the irises to see the state of the nervous system and what the nervous system was saying about the liver and the kidneys and the lungs and the brain and every part of the body. And if there was a problem in any one of your organs, there's a part of your iris that would actually become a little bit diminished or darker. And as iridologists, you can see the areas that are becoming darker, discolored, and see what stage of disease the liver is in, or the kidneys are in, or the lungs is in. So they use the eyes, they use the tongue. Simply stick out the tongue and you can see the different internal organs. They use the nails. They use looking at the skin all over the body, the face, reproductive system, stomach, liver, lungs, heart, digestion. You can see so much just by looking at a person's face. And so true physicians that trained for 7 years were taught all of this, but not only how to identify disease, but how to assist the individual back to a situation of health. So one of the things that I'm absolutely in love with, and I would travel around the world and stand on stages and invite people up I'd never seen before, take a photo of their irises and tell them what was going on. I'd look at a simple photo and be like, oh, you have a major inflammatory digestive condition. I don't know anything about this person. I just looked at their iPhoto and they'd be like, oh yeah, I've got Crohn's disease, or oh, I've got irritable bowel syndrome, or oh, I've had all these issues, but I'm not sure. I haven't been to the doctor to check. It's like, well, I'm telling you, you have major inflammation. You can see it even in this photo around the area of the colon, all these spokes of like orange, dark stuff showing up, which is you see in so many different people because so many people have these digestive conditions. So what I love to share and teach to as many people as possible is the foundation for iridology and sclerology, because all you got to do is look in the mirror. All you got to do is, you could use a simple iPhone these days or a smartphone, or get a good camera like I have. I got a camera right there, super high powered, get the light, open it up, take a photo, blow it up and look at it. And then you can look at these charts and actually see what's going on. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of this now. Okay, so this is my charts, and you can see all of the digestive organs in orange. We can see the lymphatic system in green. So got the spleen, got lymph all the way around, and then even the breast tissue is mostly lymph. So this is, just for an example, this is a woman with stage 4 breast cancer, and she got a massive tumor in her left breast. So this is the left iris. Your left eye displays all of the organs on the left side of the body. Your right eye displays all of the organs on the right side of the body. And we can look inside of here and actually match up different locations to see what's going on inside of the body. And it's quite brilliant. And we don't need to use X-rays, radiation, that's going to shut off your immune system for a period of time and build up in your thyroid and cause hypothyroidism. We don't need to inject you with gadolinium, a heavy metal, in order to do an MRI. We don't need to do all these stressful, poisoning things. We can simply look at your eyes and see what's going on and give you recommendations of what you have to do to heal. Unfortunately, what I have observed, and this is just my opinion, that even the iridologists and sclerologists of the world, the problem is they're still not addressing the foundational principles. Somebody goes to an iridologist and they're just like, yeah, take this herb, take this pill, take this thing. For me, it's better because it's not pharmaceutical drugs, it's herbs and it's actual natural medicines, but it's still not addressing the cause of the problem. You always have to look at what kind of air are they breathing, what kind of water are they drinking, how much water are they drinking, what kind of foods are they eating, how often, when do you eat, what do you eat, how much do you eat, who are you eating with, what emotional state are you in when you're eating? Okay, take a deep breath. Relax it out. I know it all sounds overwhelming, but the truth is these things are simple. And once we start to really get into it and just do little pieces, you feel better, you have more energy, it feels good. Then you can incorporate a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you're a superhero and feeling great and rocking with energy. And this is what the planet needs. Superheroes, rocking it with energy. So let's go back to this eyeball. Let's have a look. Okay. So one area I want to point out we can see is different is this area to the bottom, just slightly to the left. And if you look on my chart, you can see that's the area of the kidneys. Okay. So this person's kidneys are weak. And believe it or not, this is a blue eye. Let me say that again. This is a blue eye. So all this yellow, all this orange, all this stuff you're seeing is the accumulation of acid and toxicity and inflammation inside of the body. And then when we look to the right, where you see upper right, that rusty red patch, and then bottom kind of right, you see that black hole. A rusty red patch means an accumulation of toxicity that's quite concentrated. And a black hole means it's degenerative. That means the tissue is actually dying. And when we look at the chart, you can see the breast area, and you can see that's what it is. This is a woman with stage 4 breast cancer. One of the breasts is highly toxic, and the other one is degenerative. And the reason I'm portraying this is because if this woman had simply come and gotten her eye photos taken and was learning a little bit, I could have years and years prior to even diagnosis helped her with the process of healing and removing the toxicity and the inflammation so that she could heal herself. And that's the point. We want to help people before it becomes stage 4. But even if it is stage 4, we can still go into radical forms of major detoxification. And in many cases, most cases of what I've experienced, you can still reverse and get rid of the acids and the congestion and bring an individual back to a situation of health. And yes, I see some of you guys commenting. Yeah, you can see the acid, you can see the excess uric acid, creatinine buildup, etc. So obviously there are some educated people on here as well. Sclerology. So I studied iridology for so many years and then realized, oh my gosh, the sclera also gives us information. And we can see what's happening in the lymphatic fluids. And this is what's happening right now. So every person can see where there's congestion, where there's toxicity very easily by just pulling down the eyelids, taking a photo, or looking in the mirror at all the different things. We all kind of know this. Somebody's got big red eyes. You're like, oh, didn't sleep last night, or out on a bender. Oh, you need, go to the spa, have some rest, take a few days off, right? But it goes deeper than that. So when we really look under the hood of what's going on, we're going to see where there's congestion, toxicity, and buildup. So on this photo, if you look just to the right and down a bit, it says breast. And from the pupil, if you were to look from the left side to the right, it's to the right and down a bit, same area, there's this big encapsulation. And it's where the lines all kind of come together, and it's an encapsulation showing that there's some type of growth or encapsulation of toxicity. And there's a little wavy line out the other side, which shows congestion. When we see encapsulations with that wavy line, it's a sign of a major issue, okay? This is what I teach to my students. And so we can see that this woman had stage 4 breast cancer. And the nice thing about the sclera is that you can see the sclera change very quickly as soon as you start to remove the congestion, the blockage, and the toxicity, etc. So I do have some other eye photos here, but I am aware of time. I'm taking a lot longer. Just because I love to go in depth and explain things, but essentially this is a guy who had gut dysbiosis. So the lines you see right above the pupil is showing that the gut is actually leaking. It's called leaky gut, which then leaks out and wreaks havoc everywhere. And then at the left and down a little bit, you can see a big black hole. So this man was about 6'5". He came to me in a wheelchair because he had a massive tumor on his spine that was slowly growing. And over time, it literally took away his ability to walk. And so you can see that in the iridology I wanted to show you guys. But I also wanted to say, like, this is not just related to the physical. Okay. This is also giving us a window peering into the emotional state of individuals. Okay. The breasts, for like the woman with breast cancer, the breasts are all about nurturing. And so having that left side, what we receive, right side, what we put out, that woman that never took care of herself. And I asked her the questions. She never took care of herself. She'd never been to a spa. She'd never had a massage. She was too busy taking care of the kids and taking care of the family business and doing all these things. She never took care of herself. So energetically, she ended up developing breast cancer because of also mental and emotional issues. This might be hard for a lot of people to grasp, but I started out all physical healing and then started to realize everybody that was coming to me with brain tumors, everybody's coming to me with liver cancer, everybody with lung cancer, everybody with digestive issues had very similar mental and emotional major issues. Okay, so I started to look into Louise Hay, I started to look into Ina Segal and other like really intuitive people that had mapped all this stuff out. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's like 100% on point. So then I started really incorporating the mental and emotional aspects into the healing and into iridology, et cetera. Not to say there haven't been other individuals that have already done that, but this is when I was enlightened to the fact. So seeing that there was a tumor on the top of this guy's spine, the spine is all about support, and the upper spine is about emotional support. So I simply asked this man sitting in front of me, do you feel emotionally supported? And his wife said, this guy like never cried. He never showed emotion. But as soon as I asked him that question and held space for him, he just broke down bawling and all this emotion. And at the end of crying and all this emotion coming out of this fully grown man, after the 3 to 5 minutes to recover, he said, Tyler, it's the one thing I've never had my entire life. No one has ever supported me emotionally. That was a big, big deal because that's a big breakthrough. Because what I observed was the fact that his wife whole time was rubbing his back. I love you, babe. Are you okay? Can I get you anything? Emotionally supporting him. So the problem is in childhood with his own mother, we found this out eventually, he had such a traumatic experience with his own mother that he had this deep-seated belief that he was never supported by his own mother and that no women would emotionally support him. And I'll tell you, when you have a deep negative emotional belief, you constantly look for that in the world to prove to yourself that you're right, which means you can't actually see where you're supported. You can't actually see the good because you're so focused on the negative. And yes, even in those situations, healing can happen. This is an example of before and after, the top photos being before. This is a woman with lung cancer. The bottom photos are 6 weeks into this program. And you can see the difference of congestion. Visceral fat shows up as kind of this yellowy stuff. And then you can see this clearing in 6 weeks of going through this process of detoxification. And so again, these are the types of things I like to teach people. This is a guy from New Zealand named Bruce Bryant. He had major skin carcinoma, skin cancer basically. And he had multiple skin cancers cut off, and doctors said, oh, you know, you're most likely got about 8 to 10, 12 months at max because it started to spread. So he did 30 days with me online, and then he came to this 30-day program. And the first question he asked is, should I go in the sun? And I said, son, that's what you need more than anything. You need sunshine, because the sun's going to draw all this toxicity out of your lymphatic system. His whole lymphatic system, look at this. This eye photo on the left was what it looked like. His eyes always look like this. And so, of course, we got him fasting, did a colon cleanse, put him on 21. He did 21 days on a water fast. He got out in the sun more than anybody, more than I thought he should get into the sun. In fact, within about 4 days, he had boils all over his skin. And I was like, whoa, maybe too much sun. And it was pulling all this stuff out of his skin. Luckily, the property in Bali, Indonesia had all these aloe vera plants. So I filleted these aloe vera plants and put aloe vera all over this man, gave him the stuff and said, dude, you got to put this on 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. So he stayed out of the sun for a couple of days, healed the skin a bit, but then he started getting back in the sun. At the end of 30 days, he had the most beautiful skin. For the first time in his life, he developed a tan, his version of a tan. He was actually redhead, fair-skinned guy, but he looked amazing. His skin was beautiful. And this is about 6 or 7 years ago. He lives in New Zealand. He bought a nice little property next to a river. He's living out his life with his wife. I see photos of him down at the local coffee shops and still eating healthy food and things. Amazing. Who'd have thunk to tell him to get into the sun? And that photo on the right was the photo at the end of the program where you can see the lymphatic system massively clearing up. So I have these coaches from around the world that all have unique, amazing healing experiences. You know, just looking at their faces, I have such a personal connection to all of them, healing themselves of major chronic disease and then coming back and learning iridology and sclerology and how to read blood chemistry, how to read the nails and the tongue and the face and the skin, and then how to assist people back to a situation of health, how to target what specific organs using herbs, whole foods, major cleanses. And so, you know, I'd recommend at some point potentially looking into these coaches. They are around the world in different locations, maybe having some iridology, sclerology photos taken, getting a plan, looking at what's going on with your liver, kidneys, lungs, heart, etc. And so I asked the question, how do we heal ourselves? And I'm going to try to speed this up because I know I only have a little bit of time left. I know I keep saying that, but this is it. This is the 7 principles of health. And you guys should write these down. And in fact, you should come along to my simple half-day program where we're going to go deep into how to really heal ourselves. But these are the simple things. And each one of these areas, I can take you deep from wherever you're at. You might be a Jedi Knight rocking one of these things and maybe some of the others not so much. I can take you to Jedi Master in all of these areas of breathing techniques that will wake you up and invigorate you. Breathing techniques that will help you go to sleep at night when you need that. Okay, breathing to bring you out of anxiety and bring you out of depression so that you're balanced. Okay, air is number 1, and the quality of air is important. Water, what kind of water? How much water? Can we do things to water to improve the energetic state and the molecular structure? Absolutely. A lot of you know what I'm talking about, but it goes deep. Sunshine, how much? How often? Okay, when, where, how? Where do I start? What can I put on my body? A couple people asked. Exercise. What are the specific exercises I need to bring in and make consistent over my lifetime to be the healthiest? And then what are the exercises I can bring in to then build upon that foundation to become a superhero, the Jedi Master? Passion, big part of life. Are you actually doing what you love? Are you being able to make a living from doing what you love? Okay, identifying what different passions are in your life and if you've let a lot of those go or if you're using those. Whole foods. What is a whole food? I'm not talking about the whole donut. I'm not talking about the whole pizza. I'm talking about the nuts and seeds and grains and fruits and vegetables, the things that Mother Nature has to offer as offerings of life and health and vitality. Okay, and we've been so misled as a society in believing that fruit causes cancer and there's too much sugar and this thing's, you know, salicylates and greens and lectins and beans are the cause, you know, Dr. Gundry, oh, now I got lectin shield. You can take a pill so that you can still eat lentils. Come on, guys. Bringing it back to simplicity, of course. Anyway, we'll move on from this. There's one of these I want to focus on. Relationships is so massive. And you all know if you have a relationship with your significant other or a family member that's toxic, I don't care what you eat, drink, all the other healthy stuff, it's like poison inside of your body. And it's so important to love ourselves and be getting these things so that we're in balance, so that we can also have balance with the people that are closest to us. I want to talk just a little bit about whole foods. In fact, the longest lived cultures around the planet, they're called blue zones. I want to talk about what they do because that's the proof over time and distance. If anybody's got a special diet, see if it's held up over the test of time for thousands of years. And there are university scientists from around the world that got together. Dr. Dan Buettner went around the world, found the longest lived cultures, went into their societies, asked them questions about their ancestors and how they've lived for thousands of years, looked at all of them, the longest lived people with the lowest rates of disease around the world. He identified these locations, documented everything about them. So what's been tested over time and distance is probably a good place to look. Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be thy food. And when you get into these longest lived cultures called blue zones from around the world, you can see the things that they have in common. So Okinawa, Japan is the longest lived women. Sardinia, Italy is the longest lived men. And there's actually a place in Loma Linda, California, also one of the longest lived cultures. Okay. Yeah, Dan Buettner is his name that wrote the book called The Blue Zones. And you can get on audiobook, go for a walk every morning and listen to that. You can read it, and there's some really profound wisdom. But let's look at the things they all have in common. Okay. Number one is family. So they all have very close family ties. They love each other, support each other. No smoking. So they don't smoke cigarettes. They're not major raging alcoholics. Look at that. Plant-based diet. Okay. The longest lived cultures on earth all consume a plant-based diet. And what that means is, for these specifically, it's anywhere from 95 to 98% of their calories come from fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, herbs, soy. Oh my gosh. Comes from actual plants. Longest lived cultures, plant-based diet. And if we go back to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer, plant-based diet is the answer. Okay, it's what I got people to cut out all the processed foods, all the toxins, all the artificial colors, sweeteners, all the things that are contributing to disease, and then moving into a situation of, again, consuming plants. Constant moderate physical activity. What is that? That's walking. All the longest lived cultures walk on average from 3 to 5 miles per day. Every day. And that's going to visit their family. It's going for their morning constitution, their morning walk. That's the average that they walk every day. That's about an hour a day. Okay, so I make it a very clear habit every single day. I was yesterday, got out and did it every single day, about an hour of walking minimum. And, you might have to start with 30 minutes and then build up to 45 minutes and then build up to an hour. And I would recommend walking first thing in the morning and maybe after dinner just to assist in digestion. And it's these simple things that will really help. Mohammed, last name, says, I thought soy was GMO. Yeah, 95% of soy is genetically modified. And guess where 90+% of that is being used? The beef and dairy industry. Okay, so big animal feedlots of feeding chickens and pigs and cows is all that genetically modified soy and genetically modified other foods. The truth is, most of the soy that is consumed by humans is not genetically modified, but you need to be very careful and safe by just buying organic. And most people don't realize they're consuming GMOs on a daily basis. Every time you eat chocolate, it's got soy lecithin, which could be genetically modified. So every bar of chocolate you ever buy, make sure it's organic for sure, because you don't want to eat GMOs because they'll cause major gastrointestinal issues and reproductive issues as well. Okay, but soy has been used for thousands of years by the longest lived cultures. Tofu and tempeh and edamame and miso soup. These things are really good for us. In fact, they're super high in protein, super high in phytonutrients that reverse cancer. We also got to understand that when soy first came out and people in America picked up on it, people stopped eating meat, cow burgers started eating soy burgers. They stopped drinking milk from a cow and started drinking soy milk. So it was destroying a multi-billion-dollar industry. And that industry started to invest heavily into the indoctrination of doctors, naturopaths, and everybody to try to make you believe that soy causes cancer, it causes breast tissue in men, it causes all these problems. I'm sorry, it's not the truth. The original science of this stuff shows quite the opposite. I was told not to eat soy because breast cancer was estrogens based. There's no such thing as an estrogen in a plant. No such thing. It's called phytoestrogen, very different. It actually clears the receptor sites of our cells so that testosterone and estrogen can do what they're meant to do. So the very thing you're being told, oh, soy has estrogens and this is estrogen-based cancer. No, if you're eating animals instead of the soy, it's the animals that actually has testosterone and estrogen as a hormone, because only animals can produce those with the glandular system. So anyways, there's a lot of education that's needed here. I know I need to move on. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the conversation. And I plan on having you guys come along, those of you who feel attracted to this, so that we can answer all these questions and have these conversations. How do we reverse disease and evolve? The right education and taking action. Our food should be our medicine. Medicine should be our food, but to eat when you're sick is to feed your sickness. This is talking about the power of fasting. Okay, and this is the main principle I incorporated for the major detoxification of disease. Modern scientists call it rejuvenescence. Whether they're using little worms, C. elegans, or they're using mice or rats or dogs or cats or humans, every study ever conducted in fasting shows that there's a rejuvenescence that takes place on a cellular level. And man, I just want to apologize because I've gone off so much. There's some really clear things that I wanted to get into, but I probably won't have time to. But I'm just going to talk about the basics. Autolysis of tumors. So when you stop eating and you're only drinking water, let's try it. Only drinking water, like the greatest of greats for thousands of years, Gandhi, Muhammad, Jesus, all these people, Pythagoras, Plato, Socrates, Isis, all these beautiful women and men for thousands of years fasting. When you just drink water, you have no access to protein. Your body needs protein to maintain your muscle mass, your brain, create hormones, and do all kinds of things. So what happens when you start fasting is the body will scavenge all the excess sitting around broken, worn out cells to reduce the broken, worn out stuff and get access to protein. It's almost like going through a house and renovating the entire thing. All of the walls that are falling off, it goes and it totally clears it out. Totally gets rid of all the bad bricks. Totally gets rid of all the bad cells. And in fact, if you have growths like moles, skin tags, tumors, cysts, scientifically proven, those are the things that get reduced first. Your body is intelligent. It knows the difference. So it gets rid of all the non-essential tissue, burns it on the fire, makes it into amino acids, and maintains your muscle and your brain and everything else. And in fact, does it very efficiently where you actually feel quite good if you're doing it properly. Okay, so while all that stuff is breaking up, every cell of your body also, as you age, has been taking on more of what we could just say is basically acid in the system. It's called cellular respiration. So as we age, there's a little bit more acid, a little bit more acid, a little bit more acid builds up inside of the lymphatic system inside of our body, and that gets into the cells. And what that does is it shrinks the cell nucleus to a degree. So any cell that you look at under a microscope, look at somebody that's 10 years old, 20 years old, 50 years old, 80 years old, you'll be able to tell how old they are by how small the nucleus is. So what they did is they took a 40-year-old male, that's pretty much like me, add a couple of years, 40-year-old male that's got a smaller nucleus. They fasted him for 2 weeks. That's a water fast. And his cellular nucleus went back to that of a 17-year-old. Okay, at the Department of Physiology, the University of Chicago, Dr. Carlson, Professor Kuhn fasted a 40-year-old male for 2 weeks, discovering his entire cellular physiology was that of a 17-year-old. The way this happens is by ridding the cells of the toxic metabolic accumulates that have happened over that 40 years. Which means somebody who's 40, you fast them for 2 weeks, their entire cellular experience of cells reverts back to a 17-year-old. Wow. So not only are you reducing foreign proteins, cysts, tumors, all these things, your cells have the opportunity to clean out. Okay. Now, on top of that, and usually I draw some pictures and make it very clear for you guys to see what actually happens, but that's the cell gets built up. We can clean them out through the process of fasting. This is Professor Walter Longo from the University of Southern California, who's proven that once you fast beyond about 48 hours, you'll be in this thing called ketosis, which is the breakdown of fat. When you break down fat at a very fast level, your body releases something called embryonic style stem cells. Okay, so these stem cells have something called pluripotency. That means these stem cells, that the longer you fast, the more of them get circulated, can become any cell inside of the body, an eye cell, rods and cones, neurons, brain, repair the brain, spinal cord tissue, heart tissue, cardiovascular tissue. Which means it's like when you go in to renovate and you clean out all the stuff, it's like all the protein being broken down, you're taking out all the weak stuff, ripping out the walls that got fungus and all the crap. The stem cells then come along and act like new bricks and mortar and new drywall. Okay, so when we fast, there's this reduction of everything non-essential. And then through the breakdown of fat and the release of these stem cells, scientifically proven, these stem cells will start to regenerate all that damaged tissue. And in fact, in this study specifically, if you want to just Google USC Longo fasting, you'll be able to see he proved in 3 days of a water fast, you can completely reset your immune system. So one of the first things that gets cleaned out is all your weakened white blood cells, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, all these qualities that fight off viruses, bacterial infections, all these different types of things. That's one of the first things. The weak stuff is relieved. It's like an army that's been fighting for 30 years and now they're all old and worn out. It's like going and relieving them and bringing in a brand new military that's freshly trained 18 to 25-year-olds and replacing them. That's what happens in 3 days of a water fast. And of course, there's a lot we need to learn about how to prep for that water fast, how to open up the 4 channels of elimination properly during the water fast, what to break the water fast with based on you. If you got a major liver condition, there's specific foods, herbs, and things that you could take just after the fast that will regenerate your liver very quickly. Okay. And this is the way I've been able to take individuals with stage 4 liver cancer, lung cancer, brain tumors, lymphomas, cardiovascular disease, et cetera, and guide them through the entire process, which is typically a 90-day process. Okay, interestingly enough, if a person gets their liver cut out, like some people have major liver disease, they'll get 75% of their liver cut out. The entire liver regrows within 90 days. Okay, my father used to always say, it takes 90 days to truly effectuate a healing process within the body. So if you give me 90 days and commit 100%, usually the only people willing to do that are people with stage 4 cancer, just had a heart attack, stroke, like people who really want to live, who are going to die otherwise, are the ones that typically will show up in 1,000%. What I would love is if everybody would show up 1,000% to prevent ever having to be diagnosed with some of these major conditions. So let me just move on here. So this is my next slide. And the question for you is, what if? I know we can radically extend human lifespan. And in fact, all the gerontological research centers around the world, gerontology is the study of longevity. All of them agree 100%. what works the most for longevity. They all agree. And it's basically what I'm showing you guys here. Okay. So what if we could incorporate these practices consistently every year, once a year, spring cleaning, maybe after winter, packing it all on, getting in our homes, getting all warm, maybe eating a little bit more, developing a little bit of fat, lockdown, whatever it is, you put some on, no problem. Because now all that fat is potential stem cells, which can be used to generate new cells and renew myself every single year. I believe all the lines on the face that are showing up. So if you got little crow's feet, you got all these little lines, weird little dots and things showing up, signs of aging, right? Well, that's actually the sign of the internal state of our organs. This is my stomach. This is my kidneys, right? This is my liver. This is my reproductive system and my lungs and my heart, my endocrine system and my digestive system, and so many different things just that you see in my face. As I get older, if I got a major liver problem, it's going to show up. If I got a major kidney problem, I'm going to have bags under my eyes. I'm going to have darkness. I'm going to have lines. And everybody just thinks, oh, well, I'm just getting older. No, you're getting sicker. And you have the power to reverse this toxicity and disease and regenerate. And I've seen it with thousands of people that after these fasting programs, they look 10 years younger. And everybody's like, what did you do? Did you go have plastic surgery? Did you go have Botox? And people are like, no, I went and fasted. And of course, then people are like, oh, well, fasting is unhealthy and you're going to ruin your metabolism. Because people don't know. What's hair indicating? Quite a bit. We'll talk about that. What do I do next? So if I've sparked something in you and you really want to learn more and get detailed about the process, I have a program that I put together. And the truth is, it's right education and taking action. Okay. So this has to come down to you and your personal experience. You need to find a teacher that you resonate with and like, man, this is the truth. And you need to take some serious action. Okay. And the problem that we have today is people are like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to go do that. And they start doing that. And then they're like, oh, that sounds great. I'm going to do that. And people are all over the place and everybody's saying something different. Some people like just eat fat. Some people like just eat protein. Some people like just eat fruit, like all these weird ideas and things. But the truth is you need to find what resonates with you and stick to it long enough, like really do it 100%. For at least 90 days, at least, maybe for a year or two, and see what things change. And if you feel amazing and you're mentally clear and bowel movements and everything, your skin's clearing up, then you know it's working. All your symptoms go away. You feel good, you're clear. Or the opposite, fatigue, stuff, this, that. Okay, well, maybe fire that teacher, that physician, and find another one. But eventually, if you're truly searching for the truth and health, you'll find that teacher. And when you do, it's important to like really embrace it. Okay. If you feel like I might be that teacher for you, I'd love to have you come along. I have a half-day program called Ancient Secrets of Healing, confirmed by modern science. And I want to open up Pandora's box and give you the exact guided details of how you can heal and use this for years to come for yourself, for other people. Okay, this program is online. It's $497. But hold on a second, because I got some awesome bonuses that I want to include. The actual live virtual event is on the 9th of March. Okay, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you can't actually make it during that time, it will be recorded and I will send it to you. But I highly recommend showing up in person because it's an interactive workshop. I'm going to have some of my coaches there. I'm going to be there myself. You're going to have breakout rooms, having conversations, and a lot of growth is going to take place. What you will learn: the ancient secrets of healing confirmed by modern science as the fastest way to heal and regenerate. The science of fasting and miracles that can provide in healing. Proven steps to heal major chronic disease. How to prepare for the fast. Super important. Okay. If you're working, if it's your birthday, no problem. The recording will be there and it'll still have all the information that you need. Okay. And I got some other amazing bonuses I'll talk about in a minute. How to prepare for the fast is one of the most important things to get into, one of the most healing things you could ever be doing. Because if you just try to go fast on your own, it's probably going to last for half a day, maybe 2 or 3, and you'll feel absolutely toxic and like you're dying, because that's probably what's happening. The steps to take during the fast. Okay, so you need to know exactly what to do during the fast to amplify the healing process mentally, emotionally, clearing lots of stuff, and physically how to remove the toxins at such a fast rate, because all these toxins are coming out of your liver, they're coming out of your kidneys, they're coming out of every cell of on your own time scale. Okay, take a deep breath, let it out. I know Kara says, I wish it was free. Don't we all? The truth is, would you really value it? Would you actually really show up to every bit and take notes and take action with it if it was free? And I would say that maybe 3% of the population would. And the other 97%, they'd get it for free. They wouldn't really show up. And so in order for you to truly get the value, you have to value this. Okay? If my life was on the line, would I be able to find $197? Absolutely. 1,000%. If you were diagnosed with something or you absolutely had to come to this, could you get $197 somehow? Yes. What I'm telling you is your life is on the line. It is, because we're either moving towards life and health and education and growth, or we're potentially going down the wrong path. And I say, don't wait until a diagnosis. Don't wait for anything else. It's time to take action now. Look at what's happening on this planet today. It is more important now that we become empowered and educated and take action to heal ourselves. So that's what this is about. I have a few minutes left, I believe. If there are some questions, I am happy to answer some questions for you guys. But I just want to say thank you. We do have $465 in savings if you guys take action today. realsummits.com/TT. Maybe we can drop the link in the chat. It's pretty easy if you guys want to type it in. And I would love to see you. I'd love to answer all your questions. This is going to be an amazing workshop. And again, even if you can't make it live, I think even just watching the recording will be a massive upgrade. I can see a friend of ours popping in here.
Oh, wow. Guys, put some love into the chat. Tyler, that was absolutely phenomenal. I was glued to the screen the entire time. I almost didn't come on because I'm making notes all over the place. I'm like checking out my own eye in the mirror. And I'm like, that was just phenomenal. Lots of love coming in there. Guys, you do not want to let this opportunity go by. Head over to realsummits.com/TT. Get it in for only $197. If you've got any questions, go ahead and put that in there because I know that I've got lots of questions. But go ahead and put your questions into the chat. Tyler, I've got a question for you, and maybe it might be a little bit too conspiracy theorist, but I picked up the certain things that you're talking about in your talk. If we look at fast food establishments, primarily there are more fast food establishments in low-income areas than anywhere else, and I kind of feel that maybe that's not just coincidence. Those fast food establishments are placed there to keep people ill so that they don't rise up and live a much better life. Because if we are empowered to live a much better life, then powers that be have less control over us. I don't know whether I'm being a little bit too conspiracy theorist here, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I think it's both both sides. Obviously, when I look at the world and you see artificial colors, artificial sweeteners, genetically modified foods, all these fluoride in the water, chlorine in the water that can kill the good bacteria of your digestive system. It's like there's so much overwhelming toxicity that's developed over time and distance. And that obviously suppresses our natural abilities mentally, emotionally, physically, psychically, and all these things. So it's obvious that there are these things that exist in the world that are keeping us back. The way that came about, anybody could speculate about. Another side of things is you have like the big beef and dairy industry and these big agribusiness, Nestle, and all these big companies. And what happens is they have so much money that they can go to the lobbyists, and those lobbyists then go into politicians and Congress, and they're constantly fighting to give subsidies and things to the most wealthy corporations, right? So beef, for example, they've got all these lobbyists fighting for taxpayer subsidies. And so what happens is the federal government will say, well, we're going to give $1 billion or a couple $1 billion in subsidies to all of these beef industry, right? And so what they do is they have all this subsidized money to clear forestation and plant all these foods to feed the animals. And that's subsidized by the government, which takes a hamburger from $5 for a hamburger down to 99 cents to buy it at McDonald's. And this is the big thing is like, why does it cost me 99 cents for a single avocado when it just grows, hundreds of them grow on a tree, or a mango, or organic food? The organic food like mangoes and apples and bananas and oranges and these things, that should be cheap because it's like growing by the hundreds per tree for free. Essentially, it rains and it's growing. All you got to do is pick it. So how is it that you can raise an entire animal, slaughter it, transport, and do all these things, and it's cheaper than an avocado? And that comes down to subsidies. That comes down to, politics, et cetera, et cetera. So in order to fix that, intelligent humans should come in and say, hey, well, let's take all these subsidies that contribute to the sickest thing, which is also a major, bankrupts nations because of cancer and heart disease and all these types of things. Why don't we take all that money and actually invest it into the organic sector so that apples, bananas, avocados, fruits, vegetables, celery, cucumbers, is like super dirt cheap. That's the way you could look at it. Is it's like, well, avocados don't have multi-million dollar, billion-dollar corporations to fight for those subsidy dollars. So it's kind of like, you could look at it from two ways. Is this something that happened because somebody's, intentionally trying to suppress everybody? Or is it because, we've invested so much money in McDonald's and we've actually spent all this money on the sickest foods, so they become so powerful that they end up getting subsidy and making it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper? And of course, I would say that it's probably a little bit of both, right? Or a lot of both. And I think that as individuals become more empowered and become more successful financially, they're not going to be mostly the people you're going to find at McDonald's every day and these really cheap types of packaged foods, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I can only speak for myself, but, I spend lots of money, ridiculous amounts of money just at Whole Foods 3 times a week. For example. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is the neighborhoods and the places where people are more intelligent, McDonald's and some of these places are probably not going to be as successful there. Whereas the people that don't have the money, that's all they can afford. I got myself and 3 kids to feed, and I'm on a super budget. I can only afford to take my kids and get Happy Meals or go into the regular grocery store and buy the cheapest food. And the cheapest food is literally made of plastic. It's called hydrogenated oil. So they put fully hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil into so many different packaged foods. But then when you use that, it doesn't taste as good. So then they use MSG to make it taste better, addictive. They call it natural flavors and spices, and then artificial colors and sweeteners and different types of things. But all of that stuff is so artificial and plastic kind of based that it's super cheap. And then you have the sickest or the poorest people eating the food that's going to make them the sickest. It's unfortunate.
All right. What an incredible answer. So, there's so many people asking questions on here. And I know that you said earlier in your presentation that when one of your clients came up to you and said, Tyler, can you heal me? You said you didn't make that promise. You said, if they give 100%, you'll give them 1,000%. Somebody did ask a question about related to MS. How would this program help them heal MS?
Well, I can tell you I've worked with quite a few people with multiple sclerosis, with fibromyalgia, with lupus, with all types of nervous system conditions and MS specifically. And again, MS is directly related to the breakdown of the nervous system through an accumulation of toxicity over time and distance, either due to the environment, due to the foods that were eaten, and also due to the mental and emotional state of stress that it causes that breaks down the nervous system and causes multiple sclerosis. So I'm a big believer that anything that we have caused due to lifestyle and these types of things, we can uncause due to a better lifestyle and things that regenerate the body. And there's a lot of good science. There's something called lion's mane mushroom. And scientists have discovered that the lion's mane mushroom specifically looks just like the brain. When they cut it open, it looks like the interior of a brain, and it actually regrows neurons in something called myelin. So myelin is like the myelin sheath over the nerves that breaks down, that leads to the cause of MS and fibromyalgia and some of these disease conditions. So believe it or not, fasting, if you've prepared for it correctly, fasting develops stem cells which will regenerate the nervous system in the myelin. But also there are specific foods like lion's mane and other things that can be used after a fast. Once we detox and kind of regenerate, then there's foods that can be brought in to actually heal the system. And of course, proper movement, exercise, getting the spine in alignment, et cetera, are all contributing factors. So that's kind of my easy answer to a complicated question, but I do believe 100% if the individual is willing to show up and really take it on, they can heal and reverse that condition.
Well, we're getting lots of questions about the different types of diseases, disorders that people have. Now, I think we can go through it for days. Does it work for cancer? Does it work for arthritis? Does it work for Parkinson's? What doesn't this work for? What if you come across that it doesn't help? Let's eliminate all the hundreds of questions that have come in about the different disorders.
I'll just go straight to the hardest one, I would say, that I've dealt with is pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is one that's a really tough one to reverse. Type 1 diabetes, I haven't had enough people to work with. I believe it can be reversed. Unfortunately, I've never had the opportunity to work with too many type 1 diabetics. One type 1 diabetic that came to my program did not require insulin by the end of the program. And I informed them of what foods they needed to eat to not require insulin. So that means a type 1 diabetic not needing insulin as long as they eat that way. But the individual, kind of went back to doing whatever. And so I think if we had people enough commitment, there's one guy, Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who focuses on type 1 and type 2 diabetes. He recommends a high carbohydrate, low fat, plant-based raw food diet to reverse diabetes. He actually has a documentary about that specific thing where type 1 and type 2 diabetics from the documentary actually reversed it. So yeah, what I'd say is with so many questions coming in, that's what this half-day workshop is really for, is to interact with people, answer their questions on a deep level for each individual condition. And it gives me time to actually go more into depth and to describe what needs to be done, what caused it, and what types of things the individuals can do.
Yeah, 100%. And I can tell you now, guys, after you're done buying, I'm going to go buy this program. I can't wait to spend half a day with you, Tyler. I'm blown away. I'm already a fan. And I'm going to pick your brain the entire time. Candace, you help people with forgiveness and help people to overcome trauma. And Tyler spoke about this with the gentleman who had trauma with his mother and believed that he could not be loved by another lady. Yeah. Now, you've got a question to ask Tyler around the people that you've helped with forgiveness and how it relates to his program.
Absolutely. Hi, Tyler. Good to see you again. And what an incredible session. So, I mean, at a time like this, right, we're having people who are unfortunately taking their lives and that are suffering with so much just mental health trauma, depression. And how is this program for those people who are feeling as though like mentally they're just not getting it together? Is your program ideal for those kind of people?
I would say yes, 1,000%. And the reason for that is when we get to these dark levels of depression, it's not going to be some simple little remedies that are going to fix it. Typically, these people need like a major event, like something big to like happen to wake them up. And, you know, this is talked about by the ancient Egyptians. They said there's a 3-step process. Number 1 is awakening. Number 2 is purification. Number 3 is activation. So first we need to wake up to what's really going on in the world. And wake up happens 3 ways. This is a long answer. 3 ways. Through getting into the presence of a master, because the presence of the master will be the representation of what we're looking for. We need somebody who is the model and living, not just talking, but living what it is they're speaking about. Number 2 is physical culture. So there is a very physical type of process that we can be about to receive an awakening. And a lot of times athletes and people who really go deep on the physical, they have like this awakening process. Okay. And when we either awaken through the presence of a master or through the physical process, if you don't know the next step of purification, then you fall back asleep. Okay, so we need to know about this next step of purification. That's what I'm teaching at this half-a-day workshop. Number 3 is trauma and disaster. So you either wake up through the presence of a master, through very physical, specific training, or through trauma and disaster. And the people who are depressed and ready for suicide, that's trauma and disaster. It's actually an opportunity to wake up. Okay, and so that's a degree of what I'm offering, is to open up kind of Pandora's box, so to speak, talk about our true ancient path, past, and ancestors that I believe if individuals are willing to show up, and typically people who are sick, major depressed, or at this point of like, do I want to live or not? They need that level of why. Why do I want to stick around? What is this all for? And to know that, you know, there are laws of the cosmos. They're called ancient hermetic principles by Hermes. And one of those is the law of the pendulum. Okay. The swing to the right is equal to or greater than the swing to the left. The swing to the left is the negative. So the right side is actually equal or more. And so when we observe life, when there's a major swing, negative, mandates, forced this and that, you know, something that happens to you personally, majorly that's negative, we need to wait, we need to observe, we need to realize that that swing is going to be counterbalanced by something even greater. So if people can just get through the major push that's happening over here, it's, believe it or not, it's a good thing, because the more they push, the more it's dark and, you know, all these things, they're building their own downfall. And eventually it's going to swing and we're going to see technologies and support and love and things on a whole level that we've never experienced in our entire life, because we've never seen this pushed so much. In my lifetime, I've never seen it. And I'm waiting, and I've helped so many people that have had these negative swings, just be like, hey, take a deep breath, just wait, just watch. And almost every single time something great comes from it. So that's my answer.
Brilliant. Guys, realsummits.com/TT. Tyler, I wish you could spend the entire day with us. But the only way that we can do that is we go into the workshop. Guys, I actually just did a quick calculation, Tyler, based on the average length of human life. For somebody to take this day out and spend with you would only contribute to 0.003% of their life. And I'm just thinking, how could you not take 0.003 of your life to make up for the 99% odd to change everything? That's leveraging. When people ask about how do you leverage time, experience, knowledge to fast track, this is exactly how you do it. realsummits.com/TT. Please put some love into the chat for our incredible speaker, Tyler Tolman. Tyler, what a privilege having you, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Much love. Thank you so much.